government that's holding them together. And yet you have the epicenter of terrorism right there, and you have hundreds of nuclear weapons.
So what would you say to Governor Perry? Governor Perry says we're essentially just handing the money and not getting anything in return. Are we getting enough in return?
You're getting something from them, and it's a relationship where we need them, they need us, and we need to hold them more accountable than what we are. There's no question about that.
And let me also switch conversation just back to immigration for a moment, because you and Newt Gingrich got into it a little bit there. Your campaign put out a press release saying, after the debate, saying that Speaker Gingrich had opened the door to amnesty. Is that the way you would put it, that he is talking about amnesty?
Well, again, I want to make it clear, I'm not speaking personally or ill of anyone on a personal level. This is based upon issues, and there's a distinct difference. When it comes to immigration, I think there's one immigration organization that gave Speaker Gingrich a D- on his immigration policy because he wants to legalize 11 million illegal aliens in the United States. That's not what I'm seeing from people who are talking to me about it. And he wanted to legalize the DREAM Act. That's at the federal level for all states. That increases magnets to the United States. And that's something that I don't believe that we should do.
So it's amnesty.
Well, you're legalizing 11 million workers. If you're legalizing 11 million workers, it sounds like amnesty to me.
And let me ask you just finally about the state of your campaign. When you came on early on, you were the favorite in Iowa. You won the straw poll. And now your numbers are down in single digits. And you have to win Iowa in order to stay in the race?
Well, we're working hard in Iowa, and the good news is we've already identified more supporters than Mike Huckabee had when he won in Iowa. Iowa is a matter of getting your supporters out to the polls. That's what we're in the process of doing. Don't count us out by a long shot. We have a very good opportunity in Iowa, and then to go on and secure the nomination. I'm excited. I think it's time to have a mother in the White House.
Do you need to win Iowa?
Well, I think the country needs to have a new president, and I believe that I'm the best candidate to be the next president of the United States.
No, we've heard that. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Oh. Back to you, John.
Nice try there, Gloria, trying to get Congresswoman Bachmann to say whether or not she needs to win in Iowa. It's an important question because we're talking tonight on an important night. Our debate tonight, 6 weeks from tonight, Iowans cast the first official votes when they caucus for their Republican choice. Then 1 week after that, the New Hampshire primary. Much more to get to here tonight, including what the candidates said about a host of other issues. The Patriot Act, for example, racial profiling, some fireworks early on in the debate. We'll be back after a quick break. Large panel to consider. Our Anderson Cooper 360 special coverage of the Republican presidential debate continues in just a moment. Welcome back. We're live tonight from DAR Constitution Hall, just steps from the White House. At tonight's Republican presidential debate right here in Washington, the former House Speaker Newt Gingrich said he would look at strengthening the Patriot Act that was passed after 9/11 if he's elected. Texas Congressman Ron Paul disagreed strongly. He said Timothy McVeigh, for example, the Oklahoma City bomber, was caught and executed without the Patriot Act.
I have a personal belief that you never have to give up liberty for security. You can still provide security without sacrificing our Bill of Rights.
I want to bring others in, but do you want to respond, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah. Timothy McVeigh succeeded. That's the whole point. Timothy McVeigh killed a lot of Americans. I don't want a law that says, after we lose a major American city, we're sure going to come and find you. I want a law that says, you try to take out an American city, we're going to stop you.
Racial profiling also came up. Herman, Cain, and Rick Santorum said it should be used to prevent terrorist attacks. Joining me now to discuss the debate again, David Gergen, Donna Brazil, Ari Fleischer, Dana Lash. Let's also bring in Aaron Burnett from Aaron Burnett Out Front into the conversation. That show airs right here on CNN. David Gergen, the Patriot Act, conservative libertarian split that has existed since this was passed right after 9/11 came out in full force tonight here.
Absolutely. And Ron Paul, I should tell you, John, he continues to speak well for the libertarians, and you can see him on Twitter tonight. They're all out there cheering him on because they thought he was strong tonight. But at the same time, I think when Newt Gingrich came back, as did Mitt Romney, they really speak for the majority in the Republican Party. A much stronger Patriot Act, be tough on terrorism. The war continues from their point of view.
From their point of view, Ari, that is a question that essentially puts the legacy of the president you worked for in question. Do you want to continue and strengthen perhaps the policies first put in under George W. Bush, or do you, as Congressman Paul says, want to walk away from them?
Well, I think that debate has been settled, and I think it really is about an 8 to 10% group that follows Ron Paul on this issue, and it reminded me of a debate on September 12th. I remember this. Okay. Arlen Specter, former prosecutor, senator from Pennsylvania, said in a meeting with George Bush that Osama bin Laden has been indicted. And nobody paid attention to that because that wasn't enough. That debate was largely settled in the country, not alone the Republican Party, but using the military to protect us on September 11th.
Do you agree with Ari about the size of the Ron Paul constituency or the Libertarian constituency on the Patriot Act, Dana, in the sense that a lot of Tea Party people are suspicious of any government reach into their lives?
Right. I think it would probably be a little bit bigger than that, but I also think that there are a lot of conservatives like myself who can kind of see both sides and sort of have a foot in either part of that conservative ideology. I see some very libertarian principles which seem valid to me, but then I also have some conservative reservations that Newt Gingrich mentioned in this debate tonight. I mean, what good does it do if you're going to tell a terrorist, okay, well, after you've been successful, we're going to come and hunt you down? That doesn't deter anything. So I understand that, but at the same time, you also don't want to chip away at the civil liberties of American citizens who are innocent.
Another flashpoint in the debate, that was one of them, the conservative libertarian split in the Patriot Act. Another flashpoint was when the sensitive question of racial profiling came up. Take a listen.
If you're trying to find somebody who may have a nuclear weapon that they're trying to bring into an American city, I think you want to use every tool that you can possibly use to gather the intelligence.
Obviously, Muslims would be someone you'd look at. Absolutely. Those are the folks who are the radical Muslims, are the people that are committing these crimes, as we've by and large, as well as younger males. I mean, these are things that, not exclusively, but these are things that you profile to find your best, the most likely candidate.
Targeted identification. If you take a look at the people who have tried to kill us, it would be easy to figure out exactly what that identification profile looks like.
Don't be willing to sacrifice liberty for security. Today, it seems too easy that our government and our Congresses are so willing to give up our liberties for our security. I have a personal belief that you never have to give up liberty for security. You can still provide security without sacrificing our Bill of Rights.
Aaron Burnett, a decade after 9/11, this is another debate in the country. Do you subject everybody who wants to get on a plane to the same security, or do you profile? Do you say on 9/11 the attackers were Muslims, therefore any Muslim trying to board a plane? Do you have a database that says who is more at risk of creating a terrorist attack, or is it everybody gets the same thing?
I mean, obviously, this is a really tough issue, right? But part of the problem is when you look at some of the recent attacks that we've had, even domestically, right? Not necessarily people who are coming from overseas, domestically. And then you look at some of the names. You say, all right, well, some of those people would have identified themselves as people who'd studied under clerics, whether it be in Yemen or elsewhere. It's a tough issue, and I think people can see both sides of it. But when you start talking about profiling, it becomes much more difficult when you're looking at, obviously, the vast majority of Muslims, whether they be Muslim Americans or not, are not doing this. But if you're going to go ahead and randomly pick out Ari Fleischer and somebody else, and because you're so busy being politically correct that you miss someone who might have bad intent, you don't want to miss it for that reason.
We can never racially profile. I'll say it right now. It is just wrong for law enforcement of any type to say we're going to go after one targeted group. If there's evidence that all these people fit a profile, then go after the individuals. And if it ends up 90% of them are one ethnicity, as long as the law driven to go after individuals, we can never, as an American society, put people in categories and say that category is suspect. It's part of our DNA.
And I would agree with Ari on this. I mean, there's no place in our country for the kind of, stereotyping, racially profiling people that some would say that this would help us get rid of terrorists. So I have to agree with Ron Paul on this issue. But, John, this was like a retro debate. I felt like we were going back into the past. The neocons, it was like the last hurrah, a celebration of the past, not looking at the current threats and the way the president has handled them and perhaps how we handle future threats to this country.
The Twitterverse will be so excited that Donna Brazile agrees with Ron Paul. That will be a big...
I agree with him on a lot.
All right, everybody stand by. We're going to work at a quick break, and up next we'll talk with the moderator of tonight's debate, Wolf Blitzer.
No, Blitz, that's oversimplifying it. I happen to believe that if you allow our intelligence agencies to do their job. They can come up with an approach. I'm sorry, Blitz, I meant Wolf, okay? Blitz, Wolf. Since we're on a Blitz debate, I apologize. Wolf.
One of the lighter moments there of tonight's Republican debate here in Washington, and Blitz, you know, Wolf Blitzer is with me right now. Can I call you Wolf?
Call me whatever you want. That's all right.
A great job tonight. Now, what was your impression? 8 Republican candidates, some disagreements on some of the big security issues. What stood out most to you?
On most of the issues, they agreed. They were all looking for opportunities, understandably, to go after President Obama. But there was disagreements. There were some significant disagreements, and the most, out from these other Republicans was Ron Paul, because he takes views that almost all of these Republican candidates disagree with. Governor Huntsman, he disagrees with a lot of them, especially on Afghanistan. He thinks it's time to move on and spend a lot less money in Afghanistan, reduce that force from 100,000 U.S. troops down to 10 or 15,000. He said, but the others are not ready to make that kind of decision yet. But, there were some significant differences, some significant agreement as well. We were hoping that out of this debate, we'd have a better appreciation on national security, where these candidates stand. I think we got a little bit better appreciation.
We got a much better appreciation. At the end, you had an interesting conversation about immigration, which we know has been an issue that has moved the numbers in this Republican race. Governor Perry gets into the race. He's up high. Says, I don't support offense. I give in-state tuition breaks to children of illegal immigrants. Conservatives go away. I thought it was interesting at the end. Remember, this was the party of George W. Bush, the compassionate conservative who wanted to have a path to citizenship initially. Then it became a path to legal status for those who are in the country illegally. Newt Gingrich says you have to do something. You're not going to expel them. A lot of the others don't know what to say. They can't find the right word, because they know if they say anything that's open to letting those who broke the law to get here stay, they'll be accused of amnesty. They're struggling on that one.
I was a little surprised at how tough Governor Romney was on this issue, because he disagreed with Newt Gingrich. Said, if you've been here for 25 years and your kids were raised here, you go to a church, you got to find a way to stay here legally. You don't necessarily get a pathway to citizenship, but you can stay. Not all 11 or 12 million illegal immigrants. And you heard Governor Romney say, well, look, that in effect is a magnet. That will, if you do that, that will encourage more illegal immigration. So they got into a little dispute on that. Afterwards, I was speaking to the Speaker, the Speaker Newt Gingrich, and he said, look, he was saying what he feels. It might get him into some trouble with conservatives and Republicans, but that's his position. He's thought a lot about it, and he's willing to take the grief if he gets some grief on that.
Be interesting to watch, because Iowa, the immigration issue plays among the Tea Party and the conservative base there. 6 weeks from tonight is the vote there. When you look at these debates, we always look coming in, well, who's at the top? Does the front runner get a target? Gingrich, for the first time, was at least Governor Romney's equal, if not slightly ahead of him in the national polls. And yet, on the immigration at the end, yes, some criticism. But for the most part tonight, we saw a lot of what we've seen in prior debates. Everyone trying to say Newt's a smart guy, right?
He didn't get a lot of grief. He got a little bit, but not much. I was expecting, frankly, some of the so-called second-tier candidates to go after Newt Gingrich, because he has emerged as a top. He's one of the front-runners right now. He and Romney, according to the national polls, and the polls in Iowa, even in New Hampshire, South Carolina, both of them are doing really, really well. So I thought maybe we would see a little bit more from Michele Bachmann, for example, or Rick Santorum, or some of the other candidates, Huntsman, going after Newt Gingrich, and Romney for that matter, but you didn't see a lot of that right now. I think maybe it's before Thanksgiving, and they're trying to be nice.
Tonight on this stage, we didn't see it. I suspect maybe by sunrise tomorrow in Iowa, or by sundown tomorrow.
The press releases will be coming out.
More of it. Wolf, great job tonight.
Thank you,
for spending some time with us. And foreign policy and national security, of course, the focus of tonight's Republican debate. So it's not surprising that Pakistan came up, specifically the amount of U.S. aid that goes to Pakistan. Here's what Congresswoman Michele Bachmann and Governor Rick Perry had to say on that question.
They also are one of the most violent, unstable nations that there is. We have to recognize that 15 of the sites, nuclear sites, are available or are potentially penetrable by jihadists. 6 attempts have already been made on nuclear sites. I would continue that aid, but I do think that the Obama policy of keeping your fingers crossed is not working in Pakistan. And I also think that Pakistan is a nation that it's kind of like too nuclear to fail.
Until Pakistan clearly shows that they have America's best interest in mind, I would not send them 1 penny, period. I think it is important for us to send a message to those across the world that if you are not going to be an ally of the United States, do not expect a dime of our citizens' money to be coming into your country.
With all due respect to the governor, I think that's highly naive because, again, we have to recognize what's happening on the ground.